Welcome everyone, Chris Petrie here. Thanks so much for stopping by, and we're going to actually have a lot of fun creating some beautiful flower shapes, petals, some stems, some leaf forms, and then we're also going to show how you can actually add a few more bits of information to your paintings and your compositions. When you're working, you can always add some things in. If you have an idea, go with it. If you be creative, you're the artist, you're going to sometimes have a little bit of an idea and you want to run with that and go with it because it's really a lot of fun. So that's what we did here. We painted our flowers and our leaf forms and our stems, and then we thought, like, let's add a little more to this painting to make it more interesting. And then we thought, let's add a Chinese temple here to this painting. So we did that. We added a Chinese temple and a little bit of foreground here, some directional lines going into the distance here. Added a little bit of sky wash to this, and we kind of created like a little small painting, versus just doing the composition and just, working on our flower compositions. So let's have fun together. We're going to cover everything that you need to know. We're going to go over our colors, alizarin crimson. We're going to use rose madder. We're going to have a few more colors. We're going to add some raw umber, tiny bit of burnt umber here, a little bit of olive green. So you're going to see we're going to use a simple color palette of colors scheme here. We're not going to use a tremendous amount of colors. We'll keep it simple to get this composition done, and then we'll also, again, add at the end of the video, we're going to add in this Chinese temple, which really just kicks it up a notch and makes everything look really beautiful for this painting. So I'm really happy you're here. Thanks so much for coming by. And again, let's get started. We'll start out with a pencil sketch first. So we'll go over the drawing first, and then we'll get right into the painting. All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone, it's Chris Petrie. Thanks so much for coming by. We're actually going to do some flower painting today, and we're going to get started here with a quick pencil sketch. So I'm hoping that you'll use my pencil sketch to get yourself started too when you're just about ready to begin your drawing, and then move of course from there into the painting portion. So what I'll do is I'll just draw this quickly so that we can get started with the painting. We're going to have a lot of fun painting. Let's see now. Let's start down at the bottom here. I think what I'll do is I'll draw kind of dark, so I'll make a dark pencil line here. And then at the top of this, I'm going to make some leaf forms. Like that. And then some blossoms of flowers. I'm just carefully drawing what I'm seeing here. But I think I'm drawing dark enough that you'll be able to see the pencil lines really well. And then we're going to, about down here in the corner, I'm going to make another bit of flowers over here. Then over here, I'm going to make another stem coming up. And then from here, we're going to do a few more flower petals here. That looks pretty good. And then I think over here, we're just going to do one more like this, and then we'll have some green leaf forms over here. And then maybe some more petals of flowers over here. Maybe another petal or two over here. And the main idea is we're just having fun creating some petals and leaf forms and stems to practice our skills with flower painting. So I think that looks pretty good. What we'll do now is we'll take a quick break. You did see the finished painting in the beginning of the video, so we're just going to sort of take a quick break now, and then we'll come right back and we'll mix up some colors and we'll start to work on this. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun doing this. This is kind of like a great exercise if you're interested in flower painting and you kind of just want to work on some more simple compositions first, or for warm-up exercises and things like that. You can actually do this. And, you know, it really helps a lot if you're sort of doing some compositions, maybe where there's no pressure. And then if you go in and you're going to do a finished painting, you've kind of already warmed up and created some flower shapes, petals, and some stems and leaf forms, things like that. So great way to practice up for getting ready for a painting if you're going to do like a still life with some flowers or just a flower painting and so forth. So, all right, let's come back in a few seconds and we'll get started with some of the colors on this. All right, I'm going to use a round brush, travel brush, and we're going to start out with some raw umber and maybe a little bit of olive green, cerulean blue, and that gives us a good range of warm and cool for our stems. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with my stems here, going up. Like so. And there's no reason why you couldn't just maybe get your stems kind of working, you know, in your painting. I would kind of change up the colors and the color mixes when you're doing your stems, so it's not just all one color. That's kind of like the, you know, most watercolor artists, when we first start out, our first couple of years or so, we kind of, maybe we just think like, all right, I'm going to mix some colors for the stems, and we mix like one color, and then we just paint all the stems one color. So here, after years of painting, we say, let's change up our stems by adding in some different, we modulate the colors basically. So we don't want to just go in there and paint with one wash of one color. We go in, we add some cerulean blue, which is a cool color, and then we go with some warm, which is like the raw umber, and maybe a little bit of yellow ochre you could add in there too. So it's kind of like a warm and cool. A little bit of green, olive green. And then as I look at this, I tend to think I want to add some of the green leaf forms up here. like that. So that's kind of like the game plan here I'm using is I'm going to put in the stems, the stems first for these flower petals, so that we have the base, sort of like the base of what we need to attach our flower petals to. And then we can paint our green leaf forms. So maybe you'll have, so as you'll see here, and you saw the finished painting in the beginning where we show you the finished painting beforehand, so you always know kind of like what your finished product should look like when we're completed. You know, that's what you're working towards. The finished painting is the finished product you're looking for. And so at this point we're working on the green leaf forms first, and then we'll add in our pink flower petals next. And we can keep working here because we have sort of a pretty straightforward painting. I'll get some rose madder here, maybe some, that's alizarin crimson, and then some rose madder here. And then maybe a little bit of cerulean blue, which we've already used, so a little bit of cerulean blue over here next to this, just to make a little bit of a change in color if we want to have a little bit of a modulation of color. And then we're going to start out on the left side of the painting. If you're right-handed, you'd want to start over on the left, and then you work your way to the right. And then if you're left-handed, you'd start over here on the right side and work your way across the painting this way. Just a little bit better so that maybe we're not leaning into the paint. So let's start our petals up here. Like that. You can go in and get some straight paint. Dab in some straight paint here and there too. That looks good. I like to use tissue to dry off my brush, so if I want to dry off my brush a little bit, I can dry off my brush so that I have less water on the brush, so I don't kind of add too much water to my my petals here, my flower petals here. So let's and you can see that makes a really nice, beautiful pink flower petal with the rose madder and the alizarin crimson. And I try to stay within the pencil lines that I drew, but you can go outside of those pencil lines or not quite fill in the pencils lines, that's fine too. And some alizarin crimson, maybe we'll do a little alizarin crimson there, like that, here and there. Again, we're just trying to maybe get a little bit of variation in the colors and in the tone, so you can see how when you make some straight paint right into your flower petals, you'll get that little bit of a darker tonal value, and then here toward the outside of the petal it's a little lighter, like that. You can always dab up a little bit of paint to get a little bit of a highlight of some light on your flower petals. And our paintbrush, our round paintbrushes that we use in watercolor, tend to be the shape of flower petals. So you can almost go in and just use the shape of the brush hairs. And then sometimes you'll go around this way and turn your brush the opposite direction. So sometimes you can take your brush, turn it pointing upwards, your brush hairs, like that. And then sometimes you'll turn your brush the other way. Like that. We'll go and get some more straight paint. Damp brush. And then sometimes you can also lift up a little bit of paint with a tissue to get a little bit of a highlight there of light. A little bit of purple, cerulean blue. That also gives us another little bit of color change, color variation. And again, I'm changing around the brush. Vertical here, but more pointing downward, pointing upward. Again, you can go outside of your pencil lines if you want. And you can even, at a later time, once the painting dries 100%, you could go over with another pencil line if you wanted to. Once it dries, then you can go and, if you feel more comfortable where you want to have the pencil line like that, you can do that. It's all how you want to have your painting look, I guess. I'll do a couple splashes. Maybe a little couple splashes of the green. And you can see I'm just working around the flower petals. You could add a little bit of green. Into some of the flower petals. Kind of ties them in a little bit better to the stems. It just feels like they kind of melt and kind of combine together, the stems and the flowers, if you add just a little touch of the green and the raw umber and the yellow raw umber and olive green. If you add just a little tiny bit of that to the flower petals, you will see that it kind of ties them together, makes it look a little better. A bit of green, a little more splashing there. All right, so we've worked a lot, you know, so far. We've got a lot of these flower petals here underway, and everything's looking good. So what we'll do is next we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up these here. And then possibly we'll add some background. All right, so we're going to keep working. We'll put a little bit of more the rose madder onto our palette. A little more of the alizarin crimson. And we'll keep working here. And then we're going to, again, use our brush, pointing it up vertically up, pointing toward the top of the paper, to get some of these here, these shapes, these flower petal shapes like that. This one here we might work like this. This one here we can, so you can kind of move your brush around. Then over here this petal is like this, so you can spin your brush around this way and then point it up this way like so, and that's get you a little more effective in getting that flower shape there, the flower petal shape. And we'll do the same thing here. We have some more. Maybe some straight paint here and there. Maybe some lighter wash on a few petals like that. And as you can see, you really can have a lot of fun doing these flower petals and these compositions like this. They're kind of free and fun, so you don't feel like you're painting a finished painting, let's say. You're kind of just doing a composition, practicing up on your flower painting skills, your flower petals, your leaf forms, your stems. So you kind of do this, and if you even wanted to, sure, we could actually add something else in here to this painting to kind of just kick it up a notch. So that's what we're going to do next. We're actually going to, I'm going to take a few seconds, maybe go online, maybe find something that we can add into this. This is sort of like a Chinese type flower arrangement with these type flowers, the pink flowers. And we also could do a little more detail work. So before we, let's do this. Let's add a few more details with a fine detail brush. We're going to use a needlepoint brush next. So we'll use this needlepoint brush in just a few minutes. I'll just take another quick break. And then what we'll do is after that, we'll add in actually a temple. We'll do like a Chinese temple in the background here a little bit in a nice softer kind of wash. Kind of to just take this to the next level where you can actually have fun and add things to your composition. So if you're just working on a fun composition like this, doing some flower petals, leaf forms, stems, working on something like that, you can actually, by all means, be creative. Take your artist liberty and say, let's get a little creative, maybe add something into this a little more, interesting. That's going to, take it to the next level. And then you never know, it might look good, really, so, really exciting, and you could like put it in a frame or whatever, or, it could turn out to be a finished painting. So always think of it that way. If you're working on compositions like this, you can sort of work at your own pace, create, this type of a composition, at your own pace, have fun with it. And then you can also take a step back and say, well, can I add anything to it? Ask yourself the question when you're doing compositions, maybe practice compositions. You could ask yourself, can I add something to it that's going to make it look a little more interesting? So we'll do that. We'll, again, we're going to make maybe a Chinese temple in the background here. I think that'll look really interesting. And we'll also add a few more details to the flowers. We'll do that next. Okay, all right, so let me just take a quick break. And I always mention, too, all my art supplies, my palettes, my paints, my brushes, I have that in the comments section down below. So if you ever want to research what I'm using, I always put anything I put in my comments section down below. It's art supplies that I use, and I really use them on an ongoing basis, and they work fantastic. They perform really tremendously well. So I'm not going to put anything that I haven't worked with a long time and know that they really perform well for you. And then obviously if you're shopping around and you see other things, you might want to purchase other things too, of course, or something different. But at least you'll kind of have the basics of what I'm using for my my artwork. here on my channel. And then also too, I always mention, feel free to subscribe on my channel, especially if you're here for the first time. Thank you so much for coming by. We're creating paintings just like this every week. So, and every, and month after month, and even year after year. So if you click on the subscribe button below on the right-hand side, that just means you're going to be in touch with us and you'll be at the right place at the right time as you go forward learning watercolors. So I'm hoping you'll stick with us here. And I'm always covering the fundamentals and the basics of watercolor no matter what we're painting. So here we're doing some compositions, doing flowers, flower shapes, petals. Next week we might be doing ocean scenes with ocean and beach, sand, and interesting things like that. Or maybe the next week we're going to be doing some boats, or who knows, after that we'll do flowers, flower arrangements with flower vases and interesting things like that. So we're always creating new and different things. So look forward to a lot of different subject matter when you're painting on my channel here with me and with all of us, so that you're going to kind of get a really good feel for a lot of different subject matter, which is going to broaden your horizons as a watercolor artist. But I always mention too, please paint what's your favorite. So if flowers are your favorite like this, paint lots of that. Do whatever you really enjoy most. Do a lot of that. But also try to branch out and do a couple other things that you may not like so much, but it'll help you to actually your skills will become better as a watercolor artist if you're trying different things. But again, I always say, yeah, please work with the things that you like to work with, the subject matter that's your favorite. So if you like doing flowers, keep doing a lot of those. And I have hundreds of flower painting videos in my archives on my channel, so you can go back and look at all my other flower painting videos. Or if you like to paint the ocean, I have hundreds of, or at least 100 or 200 paintings on oceans, beach scenes, things like that, as well as all other, subject matter that we do here. Architecture, buildings, street scenes, landscapes, trees. We do everything here on my channel. So I'm really hoping you'll stick with me here and keep working along with us, and even go back in the archives to actually work on some other things when you have time, if you have the time to do that. All right, so we'll come right back again. Thanks for watching here as we work and finish up our painting. All right, we're going to get some more details here. Just a quick bit of detail on the flowers here. I'll use some burnt umber and cerulean blue. So we used cerulean blue before, so that's going to kind of be a great way to not start using any additional colors really. The only thing we added was a little bit of burnt umber, because that's a little bit darker than the raw umber. So we can use burnt umber, I think, and it'll blend nicely with the painting. And then we use the same blue that we used before to get our darks here, just to get some of these little bit of flower details here. There's some and I'll add a little bit of water into that to thin it a little bit with a little more water, like that, and that looks good, just to get some of these details here. And we don't have to be too detailed with it, just some of the then we can put some dots on the ends. And sometimes these really fine details make a big difference in something looking very realistic. Even though we're painting these loosely, if you add some of the more fine details of things, sometimes it really does make it look a little more closer to realism versus being a little bit more abstract. So if we just spend a little bit of time, add a couple more details like the small little round shapes at the ends of those pointy shapes that are coming out from the center of the flowers. All right, that looks fine. Now, again, we said we're going to just sort of add a little extra something into the painting. So here I'm going to bring this photograph. Maybe we'll put it over here. And that's a Chinese temple, a photograph. And then we can actually make it a little smaller than this here. But we're going to use this for our, just to kind of give ourselves a little bit of more interesting excitement to our composition here. So maybe we'll say that this is the halfway point of our rectangle where we have our flowers within the flower, our composition here with our flower shapes and petals, and that's the halfway point. So let's make, maybe the temple, we'll make it a little bit further up here, or maybe we'll drop it down a little bit. I think we'll drop it down a little bit here. So we'll take the halfway point and go down a little bit below the halfway point. And then what we'll do is we'll just make a line across. You can use a ruler too if you want to. You can take a ruler and go across your paper and kind of keep that level line going across with a ruler. It tends to be a little bit easier if we use a ruler just to go across like this, like that. And then what we'll do is we'll just, we'll maybe draw the temple over here. We'll make it small though. So we'll make the rectangle shape first over here. Like that. And then we'll slope up here a little bit on each side. And then we're going to do the roof that goes up like so. Like that. And that comes across like this. It's almost like a bowl. Like that. Then it goes in straight, like so. Almost picking up this line here, and then it goes up like this. And then it goes across like that. And then there's some ornate features on top. So we'll just make those. And there's some, we won't get into too much detail, but we will notice that we have lines here on the roof. Like that. So we want to get those in with the pencil just to have those in there. And then we have something here. This is the center. There's a little bit of a, we won't get too engrossed in too much detail. And then here there's a main arch that goes over this way in the center. And then there's two other arches here. There's a wall. So we have just a little more bit of detail. Like that. Like this. And then there's another two arches, and they're a little bit lower than this arch. So this arch is a little higher. These are a little lower, the tops of the arches. So we just want to be aware of that if we want to capture the basic idea of it. And that's really all we have to do. And that's fine. And there's some stairs that come down. Like that. So what we'll do is we'll add this in, and you're going to see how it really does add some really interesting detail to this painting. And it turns like a regular composition into something that looks like a really nice finished painting. So what I'll do next is we'll get our brush back again here. I think I'll use a little bit of a smaller brush. I'll use a travel brush, a small number 4 travel brush like this, to get the temple in here. And we're going to again use the same colors. We're not going to really change. So maybe what we'll do is we'll use the reds, the pink, so that's the rose madder and the alizarin crimson. And then maybe we'll just tone it down a little bit with a touch of burnt umber. And then we'll get that red in there, that reddish color there. The only thing is it should be cooler. I should say cooler. That's pretty warm. I would maybe blot up a little bit of this paint and then go with some cerulean blue. And right away, I think I want to make that cooler, so more of a purplish kind of color, because it's in the distance over here. It's kind of in the background. So that red is going to be, I'm going to try to tone down that red a little bit with the purple. Like that. And I'll use the same green with a little bit of the purple and red to get that kind of a good dark that we're looking at. There's a bit of some shadows there, under there. And I'll make the roof a blend of the purple and the green. And then we can add some details to the roof too, once we get the main wash on. Raw umber, burnt umber, cerulean blue, kind of a little bit of a dark there. And we'll get that dark under there like so. A little bit of blue in there. Coolness of the blue. That. And if nothing else, we're just practicing some interesting architecture along with our flower petals and things like that. And we can use a little more of that dark with some blue. And we'll make a little bit of those details like that across the roof. And a couple lines across like that. And I think that looks good. And then we can just maybe add a little bit of horizon line there. You could add some directional lines too, a little bit, just to add, to feel like it's sort of something like that, some directional lines just to kind of give it some depth. Those lines can add depth to the painting. And a little bit of a couple splashes. And of course, we could also add just a touch of sky wash to this, maybe a little bit of cerulean blue. We scrub on a little bit of that cerulean blue, a little bit of a red mixed in there for a little bit of a purple kind of. Like that. Just an indication of some blue sky color. I tend to like to blot up if I go over like flower petals or leaf forms or anything like that with some wash, like for sky wash or background wash. I'll always lift up a little bit with a tissue just to like make sure that it doesn't flood too much this green here on these leaf forms, so that it winds up becoming reactivated, and then it starts to flow out into the sky with the green wash. So that's what I kind of like to do. All right, that looks fine. I think we have a finished painting. We started out with more of a composition. We added a little bit of more detail with a Chinese temple here. And you can see how it kind of makes it a little more of an interesting composition. And that's something that can work for us too in the future. If you have paintings that you're working on and you want to add a little bit more subject matter to your painting, you can always do that. You can always, in the middle of your painting, decide you're going to add something else to your painting to make it more interesting. So don't ever feel like you have to stick with your painting. As you know, if you start your painting, you can always add something to it. That's never an issue. You know, you're the artist. You're going to sometimes want to add something, more information, to maybe make the painting look a little more exciting or interesting. So be mindful of that, because you can change it. It's your painting. You can do what you want with it. You can add things. You can subtract things if you want. When you're doing your first part of your sketches, you can delete things out of your paintings if you don't think you want to add something into your painting. You might see it in front of you and go, oh, well, I see something in front of me that I have to draw it or paint it. And that's not really true. You can remove things when you're working with your subject matter, whether you're painting outdoors or painting from photographs or anything like that. And then as the same token, you can actually add things in too. You might be doing just a composition like we did here with the flowers. And then you might go back in and say, I'm going to add something in here. And that's what we did. We added a really interesting looking temple here. And that adds some more beauty to the painting. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. Glad you are coming by and painting with me, painting with all of us here on this channel. So I always mention, please feel free, subscribe on the right hand side below. If you're enjoying this, hit a thumbs up too. If you want to see more videos like this, the best way, I always tell everyone, please, the best way to let me know if you want to see more paintings like we're doing here, give me a thumbs up, and then I know, okay, this is something more of you that you want to see. I'm already getting a lot of good results with that. A lot of you are thumbsing up a lot of paintings that I'm doing recently, and that lets me know you want to work more toward different types of subject matter and different techniques and methods in watercolor versus others. So great way. If you like this kind of a composition, what we're doing here, give me a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next video. Okay, happy painting, everybody.